Okay, let's get started, and then we'll see. We'll get more people as we go during the introduction. So welcome to this new Mansion for the month of April. Today, I'm very pleased to have with us Fred Tan. Before I hand it over to Fred, talking about leveraging tech to address global challenges in health, which I think is quite a hot topic today. Let me just give you a quick presentation of what we do at the HP developer community. My name is Didier, and together with me are a few members of the team. They will help me with the Q&A and the chat. We have this series of talk called Dimension Learn, and these are really thought leadership type of series. They are talking about trends. They're more or less vendor and product agnostic. We've been running these for the last 2 years. I don't have a topic to propose for the month of May yet. I'm working on it, but we have a page where we keep this Mention Learn agenda updated, so you can keep an eye on that. And also, this is important because we put all the replays of the previous sessions there once we have them available on our YouTube channel. We also have a different program called the Meetups, which are a little bit in depth on a particular technology. A lot of it has to do with open source. Last year, this year, we are trying to focus more on Green Lake and some technology provided by some of our partners. For example, on the April next week, the April meetup would be on micro front ends. And I think it's a really interesting topic because a lot of monolithic UI are being reworked today or re-engineered to use this approach and this architecture. It's very similar to using microservices for backend application and just apply to front end. So we have Vishal Sharma from ThoughtWorks, an external partner, coming up to talk about micro front ends for us. So don't miss that one. I think it's going to be an interesting talk, and this is next week, Wednesday. And for May, we already have a meetup, and this one is going to be on the machine learning development environment from HP. And we have Isha talking to from Determine AI/HP, coming to talk to us about that environment and open source machine learning advantage. So again, another talk more focused on data scientists, but feel free to join that one. For Meetup, we have a different page, and you see the URL here. Again, you can find all the upcoming events, you can register for them, and you can watch the replay of the past sessions. That's for the technology talk. We also have a number of interesting programs that you might want to leverage. One of them is called the Workshops on Demand. And this is a series of Jupyter Notebook-based workshops that we provide in a catalog. Today, we have about 28 workshops in our catalog. These are available over internet 24/7 and for free. And you can give it a try, and we'd be happy to get feedback from you on what you thought about the experience, both the delivery of this through Jupyter Notebooks and the content. Finally, this is a community we are building here, so we would like you to amplify and contribute when possible. So if you want to join for our talks, our monthly talks, you understood we have 2 different ones, feel free to do that. If you want to invite others to join those talks, feel free to do that too, and forward the invite links to friends, colleagues, customers, students at university. Some of the topics are pretty interesting for them as well. We have a monthly newsletter. If you want to keep track of what we do on a monthly basis, you can join that newsletter, and you can invite others to join the newsletter. We also have a dedicated Slack channel, Slack workspace, sorry, that's different from the HP internal Slack. You can join that for asking questions on developer questions on our different product or open source solutions. We have a Twitter account that you can follow if you're like a Twitter user. If you're an SME on a particular topic or particular technology, we'd be really interested to have you share this knowledge with us through a blog, for example, a blog post. So we have a very easy and open source based process for contributing blogs. It's pretty easy. We use GitHub and we use Markdown, so you can probably get through that in a few days, and we can have a blog up and running in just less than a week when everything goes right. Feel free to reach out to us for delivering meetups or participate to events. For example, we go to several events during the year, and we sometimes needs experts to deliver sessions there. Feel free to reach out. And finally, if you think our workshop on demand is great, but you'd like to propose a new topic that we don't already have there, feel free to reach out to us and propose to build one workshop. We have the framework, we just need the content. With that, you can find all these links here for the community. You can scan the QR code here to get all the links in one place. And for the rest, I think the interesting part is about to start. And Fred, it's all yours.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for inviting me to be with you here today, and really excited to be in front of this community. Like Didier mentioned, my name is Fred Tan. I am the global lead of social impact here at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and help to oversee our philanthropic foundation as well, the HPE Foundation. When I think about why I do the work that I do and why I love my work, or why I'm passionate about it, and maybe you might feel similar. I look at the world around me and I see oftentimes incredible injustices, incredible heartbreaking things out in the world. And on one hand, it requires an individual level change to make the world a better place, right? That there's a change that needs to happen inside each of us to make the world a better place. But on the other hand, there's also a change that needs to happen through us. And each of you have a huge role to play there. When I think of the potential of technology to implement broad and systemic level changes to address global challenges in health, I'm inspired, I'm heartened, and it energizes me. And so I'm really excited to be with you today to talk about how we can leverage technology to address global challenges in health. 3 goals from our time today that I hope we can accomplish. 1, I'm excited to share with you Hewlett-Packard Enterprise's philosophy on how technology can help strengthen both people and planet. 2nd, spotlight some partners that we work with, the work that you're doing, and to show how technology is or can be transformative in the world today. The 3rd is a real big hope, and the hope is to inspire you as individuals, us as a community, to help move the needle and tackle global challenges that we face in the world today. Everything that we're doing here at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise builds on what David Packard, one of the original founders of the company, said when he said that the betterment of society is not a job to be left to a few, it's a responsibility to be shared by all. And when I take a look at our history as a company, the impact that we've created for our employees, for the environment, for our communities, being a force for good is a key element of our culture that has been baked into the DNA since our founding. It guides our philosophy, our innovation strategy, our operations, and affects the way that we deliver benefit to our customers, the company, and society as large. Particularly in the environment that we find ourselves in today, there's an increasing recognition that sustainability is a force for good and can deliver business value. Particularly in our industry, corporate sustainability is increasingly woven into the fabric of businesses. So most companies are undergoing a digital transformation to accelerate their outcomes, and at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we're helping them with a digital transformation. But it is when we take a look at the intersection of digital transformation and sustainability that organizations across industries are able to grow stronger, more resilient, and more able to accelerate a data-first strategy, right? And so with the research that's on the slide here, there is a good body of evidence to show that linking digital and sustainable transformation is a good predictor of whether your business will be one of the stronger performing businesses of tomorrow. But with the strategic opportunity of digital transformation and sustainability also comes some friction, right? There's an urgent need to be data first as an organization, yes. But with that, there's a need to get their sustainability and a responsibility as well to ensure that throughout this transformation, no one is left behind. So what do I mean by that? Perhaps the acceleration of digital transformations present a couple of problems, right? Today's applications have an insatiable appetite for resources, and we don't expect that to slow down. In fact, we expect that to more than double over the next few years. And in a data-first world that's increasingly data-intensive, AI-powered, API-driven, with data everywhere, you then throw in considerations like resource constraints, space, power, cooling, and very quickly you get a complex question that needs solving. So again, linking digital transformation to sustainability can bring great dividends, but it also presents friction that we have to address. Importantly, however, the relevance of data and this transformation isn't just exclusive to large enterprises. They are equally relevant to small businesses, to nonprofit organizations, to communities and groups traditionally locked out of access to the tools and resources that can help their organizations scale and grow. And so you might say that these organizations, small businesses, nonprofits, they would experience a greater amount of friction in their digital transformation. If we take a look at nonprofits specifically, most nonprofits actually struggle with how to structure their digital programs. So 11% of nonprofits feel the way their organization manages digital is highly effective. So that's a really small number of nonprofits that say that they're on a process of good digital transformation. And that's worrying. When we take a look at nonprofits, they need to collect the right data in the right way and use that data to improve decision-making and their activities. You might even say that their ability to collect and use data is almost a life and death situation, right? It affects their ability to deliver crucial services to communities in an efficient, effective, and urgent way. But right now, most nonprofits don't have the right data architecture or even know where to start necessarily. So as a company, as individuals, as an industry, we have the responsibility to radically rethink how we make decisions and who benefits from the outcomes of our decision. And so here at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, we're trying to do good better, right? We're trying to see where and how we can do the most good in accelerating impact, in advancing the way that people live and work. And for us, we take a look at the intersection of three issues: the intersection of community need with our unique capabilities and strategic priorities. In essence, we're trying to understand what the urgent needs in the world are, how we can leverage our key strengths, including our tech and our talent, and how we can make fewer, bigger bets to enable the biggest impact in the world today. And so foundationally, this is why the work that you do is important, because it really tangibly helps to make the world a better place. As a company, our approach at HPE to the betterment of society is one of intentional focus, intentional investment that is governed by a new social impact strategy that we just launched late last year. And this strategy, again, is driven by our purpose to advance the way that people live and work. And we aim to drive change in three key areas: healthcare, community resiliency. With this, we mean clean and affordable energy, but also disaster resiliency. And the third pillar is diversity, equity, inclusion, and human rights. And I'm a firm believer that sustainability and being a force for good isn't just good for business, it is good business. And we'll take a look at a couple of ways this might be true. But zooming out, right, because we're talking about how do we leverage technology to solve global challenges and health, you might intuitively have thoughts come to your mind about how technology can both be a boon, but perhaps also a bane in each of these core pillars of focus that we have at HPE. A couple of interesting thoughts to put in your mind, for example. There was a World Economic Forum report earlier this year that indicated how most in South and Southeast Asia do not feel that technology has delivered on its promise to make the world a better place. And for me, that was stark, that the majority of people surveyed did not feel that technology was being deployed for the most good that it could. As we take a look at technology's ability to drive change, we take a look at a couple of spectrums. On one spectrum is using technology to mitigate negative impacts. So we're talking about responsibility with technology. On the other side of that, technology has the potential to maximize positive impact and to transform the way that current systems work. A different spectrum that we look at, technology has the potential to solve problems and support organizations, or it has the opportunity to optimize benefits and facilitate value that isn't currently being extracted. I talked about technology being a boon or a bane, maybe to give a specific example, if you will, before we jump into a couple of use cases. Say in healthcare, technology has an incredible potential to drive great health outcomes, right? So our technology is used in many ways to improve the speed and accuracy of disease diagnostics, for example, or to increase the speed and accelerate drug discovery and phases of drug discovery. So great potential of technology to do good. On the other hand, technology can also be a bane. So there's a good body of research in the United States, probably applicable worldwide, about how machine learning algorithms can affect health outcomes. In the US specifically, there was a healthcare algorithm that was trained to see healthcare costs and spend as a proxy for a patient's level of health. So in other words, the assumption was made that if healthcare cost for a patient was low, that their level of health was higher, and thus they required less care. So that was the assumption made in the algorithm. What this resulted in was that non-white patients who typically had lower healthcare spend were being assigned an artificially lower and almost arbitrary risk score that impacted their ability to access clinical resources. So a lower risk score as it comes to heart disease, for example, or liver function, they were assigned a lower risk score, or the score was moderated, if you will, because of those assumptions in the algorithm. And so again, we see technology, good potential for good, but also potential for harm, right? And here at HPE, we want to make sure that we use our technology, our talent, our resources to drive the change that we want to see in the world. So broad overview about what technology can be used for. The next few slides I'm going to go into jumps into use cases of how we are helping and supporting advancements in healthcare and community resiliency through technology. And the first case is how we're helping to strengthen health systems. Across the world, a couple of organizations typically contribute to the lion's share of donated blood to hospitals and other healthcare providers. On the supply side, there's always been a scarce blood supply. But over the past few years, organizations are facing its worst blood shortage in over a decade. And the truth is that often during medical emergencies, your survival can be attributed to the generosity of others who have donated their own blood for the benefit of complete strangers, right? So there's a supply side issue in the blood system. On the demand side, it is really, really hard to predict when blood is needed, where it is needed, the volume that is needed. And then you throw in other considerations like blood has a really limited shelf life. The whole system, again, relies completely on donations. The inventory management system is usually inefficient, right? Because again, we talk about how nonprofit organizations typically are not mature in their digital transformation journey. And what we then get is an environment that is incredibly hard to operate in. And so the big question that arose is, how do we efficiently forecast both demand for blood and how do we optimize how best to allocate the limited resources that organizations have? And so using data integration, cleansing, modeling, HPE helped create an advanced and AI-driven forecasting model that improved the management of blood products. Using machine learning forecasting models, we are now able to help our partner have a much improved system that better allows for strategic planning of its organizational and annual resources and operations. They're better able to predict demand of blood, organize appropriate number of blood drives, but also efficiently manage its current inventory to reduce waste, encourage more accurate orders, for example. And what's really cool is that this machine learning model that we developed has already outperformed prior models by almost 80%, right? And so really improving the management of the blood supply chain to drive value and strengthen the health system. So one example of how technology, in our case, can be deployed for good. The other example that I want to spotlight is our eHealth Center initiative. In 2012, our Pointnext team was working on several solutions for the healthcare sector and had designed an open source, cloud-based eHealth application that was deployed into our first version of an eHealth Center. And the idea is to provide quality healthcare to the most vulnerable section of our society and fill the void that exists in India, specifically with regards to primary healthcare. I will say that even though this project is focused on India, when we take a look globally, definitions of underserved communities differ from geography to geography. But across the board, typically, rural disparities in health is a huge concern globally. And so even though the initial use case here is centered on rural healthcare in India, there's great potential to apply the learnings, insight, and technology to drive change and value globally as well. So these eHealth centers are cloud-enabled, have a biometric-enabled application running, allows for seamless integration with the government's platform to digitally track, say, vaccination status with COVID, for example. And the partnership is continuing to grow, right? And so we are working with the United States Agency of International Development to use our eHealth centers for TB detection and diagnosis. There is easy ways to make this modular and integrate more diagnostic tests, especially because some of these diseases are similar, right? So take TB and lung cancer, for example, pretty similar, and there can be misdiagnosis. And so by integrating more diagnostics tests, we increase accuracy and increase impact. And so again, a really great example of how through technology, we are able to reach remote locations where traditional healthcare infrastructure does not exist, but really using technology to strengthen not only disease prediction, but also better disease diagnostics and as a result, treatment. There is a video here that I will not play for now, but feel free to watch it if of interest to you. So two use cases of how technology can drive great benefits within healthcare. And as you can see, it requires impact to be intentionally designed through the development of the product and execution of the project to ensure that technology is a boon and not a bane for the communities and for businesses that we're trying to serve. With that, I'm going to pivot and move away from healthcare and now instead look at community resiliency. And again, with community resiliency, for us at HPE, it means, can we bring clean and affordable energy to the masses? And through that, can we strengthen disaster resiliency as well, right? Understanding that the way to strengthen disaster resiliency isn't limited to post-disaster relief, but a lot of that has to do with, can we create a more just transition and long-term resiliency so that communities can adapt to and mitigate impacts of climate change. So one of the organizations that we have supported for quite a few years now is an organization called What Time. What Time's original question dates back to their quest to answer what they thought was a simple question. How clean is the electricity that we are using right now? And the gap here that they were particularly focusing on is there are lots of enterprise-related solutions for energy management, again, targeted at businesses. But when it comes to direct-to-consumer and customer choice, there wasn't much in the marketplace, right? And so for those reasons, they wanted to find out the answer to that question. They started with, a group of software coders tackling the problem in a hackathon, and grew that to include volunteers, PhDs, researchers from a couple of universities. And the resulting solution that they had is what they call the automated emissions reduction, AER. It's a real-time solution that forecasts emissions data through their API. And today they continue to feed AER with increasing algorithms and capabilities so that they can put forth solutions that align with their mission and enable customers to meet the demand for clean energy. So a couple of examples that they have, say you have an electric vehicle. Can you know what is the optimal time to charge your EV that allows for the greatest emission saving? And so through their real-time emissions tracking, they're able to find out what that is and work with companies like Toyota to integrate their solution for Toyota's customers, so that as they charge their car, they're able to know how to optimize their emission savings. For me, this is pretty cool, right? And so the two graphics that you see on the slide are from the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, and they paint two different pictures. One of them is a pretty remarkable picture of clean energy growth, right? And so that's a lower graphic that you see. And here, rather cool that renewables exceeded 20% of total US generation during 191 days in 2022, and more than triple what it was in 2019. So really, really cool. And then there are times, seasons in the year, spring, for example, the last 5 days in spring, where renewables constituted for a huge percent of total generation. In 2022 as well, renewables broke 20% of total generation during the 40 days of the fall months and 31 days in January and February. And so what we're seeing here is that renewables have been out-generating coal-fired power during a significant number of days over the past few years. And I, as a consumer at home with no visibility into the data, I'm not able to make informed decisions to optimize on my emission savings. And so this is where, again, What Time has come in with their solutions to fill that gap, which I think is pretty cool. But back to what we talked about earlier, that there is a spectrum of good. There is mitigation to actually driving impact. There is problem solving to facilitating and innovating new solutions. What Time actually realized that their solution, AER, currently is lower on the spectrum of value because it is not yet creating an operating environment where that drives more renewable energy generation, for example, right? And so I can reduce my emissions without necessarily contributing to a reduction in atmospheric emissions, right? Because I'm not actually contributing to the generation of new clean energy. I'm just using and being more conscientious of my consumption. And so their innovation moving forward is how through their products, they can encourage more generation of renewable energy to create more value. So that is an example of an organization doing incredible work to drive community resiliency. And again, a great partner that Hewlett-Packard Enterprise has, and the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Foundation has supported over the past few years. So zooming out now, away from the two use cases, there is a need to create a more equitable world. And I'll be completely honest in saying that it cannot happen without each and every one of you. Where nonprofit organizations and organizations that are striving to do good are limited by their tech knowledge, their ability to understand upcoming innovation, and their ability to leverage it. So as another example, say take a nonprofit that is currently headquartered, hypothetical situation, currently headquartered in Europe, working with human rights. And as their organization grows and scales, they have been working primarily through Google Docs to collect information, to organize their operations, and to basically make all of their decisions. As they start to scale, they reach a problem on how do they continue to collect the right data, use the data in a way that optimizes their decision-making globally. And again, right now, most nonprofits have no idea how to do so. If you ask a nonprofit, what do they need the most? Money is always something that they need, definitely. But really the thing that most of them do not know that they need is technical expertise, right? All nonprofits should probably have a technologist embedded within their organization. Most nonprofits cannot afford a technologist. And so as we think of how we are creating a more equitable world, we're thinking about it in this case. How can we create the right connections between HPE and partners that we know in the ecosystem to connect our talent with their needs, to connect our technology with their needs, to help them grow and scale their organizations, to help them solve specific questions and challenges that technology can play a role in breaking down the barrier, so that they can drive impact more effectively and efficiently. And the same holds true with for-profit businesses. How can we work with our for-profit partners to embed impact within their business consideration and show how technology can help solve for both business and impact considerations? And that's what we're really trying to do to drive a more equitable world. So summary, 5 guiding principles and needs as we try to leverage technology to address global challenges and health. The first is to think data first. What is the right data to collect? How do we collect that data? How can we use that data? But also recognizing how suboptimal data leads to an inability to fully execute on mission. The second is, how can we leverage the potential of technology fully, right? And in the technological arena, the rate of change is evolving, it's continually speeding up, and it is a pretty challenging area with frequent updates, right? And an over-focus on mission, right? Whether that is impact or whether that's business, without a focus on integrating technology into the growth of an organization affects their scalability. Third guiding principle is that knowledge is key, right? As much as it's great to talk about the potential of leveraging technology, there are costs associated with failing to keep up with tech developments, right? And one of the costs, for example, is that the inefficiency of using multiple tools without the ability to integrate data is incredibly inefficient, or not knowing which software aligns with the organization's needs might, in the best case scenario, result in an organization missing out on functionalities that could streamline operations and reduce costs. But in the worst case scenario, it could be a high cost to switch to new software, to scramble and salvage data from an old system into usable and meaningful information, right? And so organizations need a trusted source of knowledge and advice. The fourth guiding principle is that security is paramount, right? There are constantly new security vulnerabilities, and nonprofits that are unaware of these vulnerabilities could put confidentiality, whether it's funder data, whether it is benefactor data, at huge risk, right? We saw this a lot in nonprofits responding to the war in Ukraine, that they face an incredible amount of security threat to their operations and to their nonprofits. So this is my opinion, a mistake that we can prevent if there is a knowledgeable technical lead that advises on security vulnerability, take a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. And increasingly in the ecosystem, both on the business side, but also the nonprofit side, security certifications are often a prerequisite to any partnership, right? And so security is paramount, both for the outcomes that we're trying to drive as an organization, but really also the ability for our organization or any organization to succeed financially. The last, partnerships for progress, right? And here I'm a firm believer that we can go a lot further together via a partnerships approach to co-innovate, to create shared value, and to drive global impact. And it's through partnerships that we really lean into the intersection and are able to leverage technology in the most optimal way to address global challenges and health. With that, a open invitation for all of you. Again, at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, we are seeing what we can do and how we can do good better. We are about to launch a couple of signature programs where we are looking to accelerate impact-focused organizations, helping them to grow and scale both their operations, but also their impact. And there's a huge need for you individually and as a community to help us in our mission to leverage technology to drive impact. So always happy to answer any questions you might have. But as we get close to the launch, would definitely welcome and appreciate your participation, engagement, and value that you bring both to HPE, but as well to the community at large. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, Fred. That was really interesting. I can only back you up on the knowledge point number 3. We're trying to raise knowledge on the developer community as much as we can and you can take a look at our skill up page to see the different ways, whether this is our technology talk and our workshops on demand. But yeah, I think that's a really important point. I don't see any burning question on the audience. That was really quiet. I don't know if there are any questions for Fred. Feel free to ask. I will also launch the poll for the end of session. So give us a feedback here, what you thought about this session and about the Munch and Learn in general. Any question for Fred that you'd like to ask? Feel free to type it in, or we can even get you to speak up if you prefer. Any feedback on what you heard? You can just raise hand, or are you raising your hand to speak, Raymond? Let's see. Hello to talk. So I'm allowing you to talk now if you want to ask a question, Raymond.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, Raymond. Thank you.
It's just a question regarding the willingness or the, let's say the willingness of HPE to sacrifice financial advantages for other impacts, let's say the impacts that you just showed. So where is the priority? And sometimes you have competing priorities, impact for good and financial impacts, and where do we draw the line?
Yeah, that's a great question. Could I ask you a follow-up question on that? When you think of financial impact, would you share more about what your specific considerations are?
Yeah, would we go into an engagement that is financially not very interesting, but has the potential to raise the impact of being a force for good?
Yeah, that's a great question. Answer to that is it's complicated, right? Like you said, it's always a trade-off, and it takes prioritization. What I can say is that there are certain times where, well, most of the time, on a basic level, the two are not mutually exclusive, right? And so some things might be an initial investment up front, but as we look to the future, it really scales our ability to win in the marketplace. So in lots of the impact work that we do, there are two types of financial gain that can come along, two types of financial value. The first is as we help an organization grow and scale, whether it's a business or whether it's a nonprofit organization, their ability to consume increases, right? And so the work that we're doing to drive impact and help an organization be a better organization creates a stronger market overall, one in which HPE is a part of, but definitely not exclusive to us. So that's the first level of benefit. The second benefit is that there are some innovations that in a traditional business context, we might be reticent to invest in. But by putting in an impact lens to it, we are able to almost use it as an opportunity to de-risk investment, right? So we're going in, we're going to try and create a new technology, we're going to try and innovate a new capability for impact, almost using that as a test case to see if then we can take the innovation, scale to different use cases, and drive both impact value and financial impact there. Hope that answers your questions on those two fronts.
Thank you, Raymond.
Thank you,
Fred. There's, in the meantime, we've got 2 questions in the Q&A from Bill. I don't know if you can open and check the 2 questions, so it might be easier than me reading it.
Yeah, great question. So the first question, how are we using the tools and information offered by WattTime and the other associated tools to manage our use of energy sustainability? We're constantly exploring ways in which we can integrate WattTime into what we do. They're actually going to be on a panel later this month talking about environmental justice and how they see their tools and solutions being able to help the world. But beyond that, I know there's lots of work being done, say, with Tiffany and the Office of the CTO on how can we integrate data visibility and transparency to help us, our customers, be more aware of energy sustainability. So lots of things that we're exploring there. The second, is there an HPE promoted list of organizations that as team members you can consult for, recommendations where we can volunteer our time to provide the tech expertise to benefit that nonprofit? We are developing that list as we speak and developing them according to clean energy related organizations, healthcare related organizations, as well as organizations that look at human rights. So more to come on that. And once we launch that program, I'll be sure to reach out to you so that you can engage should you be interested. Thanks for that question.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you guys for the questions. If we don't have any other questions, I would like to thank you again, Fred. And thank you everyone for joining that call. And thank you for answering the poll. And I will leave you with your rest of your day wherever you are. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.